I'm Brian V, and this is Why We Work. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Tim Ringgold. Tim is a business owner, TEDx speaker, author, and certified music therapist. Today, I want to ask Tim how our work ethic is related to our values. Join me today in my conversation with Tim Ringgold. I'm Brian V, and this is Why We Work. Today, I have the great pleasure of speaking with Tim Ringgold. Good day, fine sir.
Good day, fine sir, to you.
Tim, I appreciate you coming on here. We had to top up our coffee here, our mug at least. And are you drinking tea or coffee?
Yeah, some throat coat tea.
I think it's kind of like when we get older, like I go jogging and people have asked me, why are you jogging on a mountain? And this lady, I live in South Korea, and she's 60, I think. She's like, why? It's so bad for your legs. I go, because I'm stupid. That's why. Not, I haven't gotten to that point of realizing what is probably best for me. And I certainly should be drinking more tea, I think.
Well, that's okay. I've had 4 cups of coffee today myself as well.
Okay.
So it's not all tea over here, ladies and gentlemen. Don't be fooled.
I am drinking decaffeinated coffee.
There you go. I'm not.
My doctor told me if I really want to get rid of these headaches, start with the coffee.
There you go.
But then
Caffeine.
he added cheese and chocolate and
Oh, come on now.
and proper sleep and a proper pillow. And so I'm like, if you would have gave me one, then maybe I would have at least attempted that. But you gave me a whole list. It's too hard to manage.
It's too much. It's too much. Yeah. One thing at a time. I heard a great, there's a guy named Joe Sugarman who is he's a salesman, and he was the inventor of the blue blocker sunglasses back in the day. And I heard him speaking at a mastermind event one time, and Joe is in phenomenal shape. When you meet Joe, he wears like the Hurley, like Under Armour, like muscle shirts. And Joe's probably in his mid 70s now, and he's ripped. And you're like, dude, like, please tell, what are you doing? Right. And he's like, it's what I'm not doing anymore. And he's like, so my mantra is one thing a year. I quit one thing a year. So like 1 year it was Pepsi, but then the next year was Coke. And then it was sugar, like white sugar in my coffee. Then it was cream in my coffee. Right. So but it's these tiny increments, tiny increments, because we kind of underestimate how long we're going to be around. And when we go to make change, we kind of overdo it usually. Right. And then we burn out. So his theory was, and this was 2010, and now, BJ Fogg's book, Tiny Habits, is like all the rage. And it was Joe was living this, 10 years beforehand. And it was really funny because he's like, pretty soon you'll stop eating pizza and you'll stop drinking coffee and you'll stop drinking alcohol. And then Bill Phillips, who wrote Body for Life, is in the corner. He goes, I might as well die.
Just give up everything.
Right. It's like at some point you ask yourself the question, yes, but what am I enjoying? Am I enjoying anything anymore? But there is something to be said about that, because as I age, I find that I'm slowly letting things go. And I run a really clean machine now, mostly like plant-based, no alcohol, like sleep 8 hours, meditate, cold showers, like down the list, intermittent fasting. But I'm operating physically at a level at 48 that I wasn't operating at 37. So I'm really happy with those results, right? So I don't mind letting go of some things, because what it's done is it's actually made available all kinds of other things. And so it's really been like a net gain. So that's kind of the way I think about it. What am I gaining when I let this go, as opposed to what am I losing?
Well, I was jogging yesterday, and as I was struggling, because I didn't jog for a couple of days, so then you struggle a little bit more.
Yeah.
And as I was getting down the bottom of the mountain, there's this guy, I think he must have been older than me, but he was ripped, and he was, t-shirts and shorts. So we're just transitioning here in the weather. Like it could have been t-shirt, short weather, but he was jacked and just going up the mountain like, he just started, but I know it's kilometers to that point. And he's just going, I'm like, oh, okay, I shouldn't complain. I need to do better. I can do better. Then I came home last night, and we were eating fried chicken and potato chips.
Hey, that's all right, man. Everything in moderation, including moderation. So I fully enjoyed my completely unhealthy popcorn last night while watching WandaVision.
Mm,
Fully enjoyed it because I'm doing 7, 10, 22 other things in my day that are super good for my body.
hmm
And so, yeah, that popcorn tastes good with whatever that is that they call butter. I'm sure it's not.
I try to
But
convince my dear wife. We went to Costco the other day. I said, "Honey, let's try some popcorn." She went, "Hmm." I'm like, "Okay, maybe next time.
wah, wah,
Maybe
wah.
next time." Well, that was a huge box. I think it had 45 packets of
Oh, wow.
popcorn in it.
Wow. Yeah, well, it's Costco, right? It's
Yeah, I'm
like,
like, maybe we could have just tried one. Where's the
yes,
sample guy
yes,
around here?
yes. Otherwise, you're apocalyptically stocked.
It was heavy too. I was like, "Honey, oh, how about how about this, honey?"
How about we use this for weight training when we get home?
We could have put doorstop. Tim, can you let us know of the industry you're in and what you're up to nowadays?
Sure.
I mean,
The
there's
industry I'm in
a
would
hint
be,
behind you on your shoulder, behind your
yeah,
shoulder.
there you go. So, a hint is that I'm in the wellness, health and wellness space, but I'm an unusual practitioner because my modality is music,
Mhm,
and I'm what's known as a board certified music therapist. And so I started out as a musician. I was on stage when I was 4. By the time I was 16, I was singing for the Pope in St. Peter's Square during Holy Week, like music for entertainment. And then I went through like the worst experience of my life. In 1995, my 5 best friends were murdered. And I lived in a small town. And it was just, I'd never been through anything like it. I mean, I went to 5 funerals in 4 days. And the pain and the trauma was just, overwhelming. And I sang goodbye at all of my friends' funerals. It was my way to say goodbye. And
mhm,
it tore me up, but it healed my community. And the night of the last funeral, I went to a concert. One of my last remaining buddies said, "You want to go see a show?" And I was like, "Oh, yes, please." And Brian, for the first 2 hours since I got the news, I found peace.
mhm. After
And
giving yourself during those songs for the last 4 days,
yep,
and you giving yourself and not actually healing, hoping to be healing other people, then in
yep,
return at this concert.
it was full circle, right? I got what everyone was talking about finally. And I was like, oh, wow. Because whether it was cocaine, weed, alcohol, porn, and food, I medicated every which way I could that week to try to
Mm,
numb the pain.
mhm,
And nothing worked. And I mean, I was stacking these behaviors on top of each other. And even recorded music. I mean, I'd get high and I'd listen to music and I'd still feel the pain. But when I went to see live music, there was something about that experience that took it all away.
mhm,
And in that moment, I was like, that's it. This is my purpose. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm going to help others reach for music in their toughest times so that I can just pay it forward. And so that's what I do. I
mhm.
help people who are struggling with stress, with addiction, particularly mental health issues like depression, anxiety, and I help them to stay present, open up, be creative, escape that stress in a healthy way, and really reconnect with what's important to them, all by using music.
Can you do us a favor, Tim, and bring us back? You mentioned singing at the age of 4, but what would have been your very first job? We'll get into the process of what you do in your work nowadays, but what would have been the first thing you did for money?
I got paid $2 an hour to mow my neighbor's lawn.
Hmm. Quite common.
That's where
Lawn
it
or
got started.
newspapers, yeah.
That's right. Yeah, mowing lawns in
How
my
old were
town.
you?
10, 11,
Hmm.
right around there.
What were you doing it for? What got you out of the house?
Probably GI Joe comic books
Hmm.
and action figures. Like I had a habit, like I needed a fix, of my toys, and my allowance wasn't cutting it. So
Hmm.
I needed to do something more.
As you got older, I know you had more of a heavy metal influence. Would that be
Yes.
accurate? Did
Yes.
did you work in different jobs, or were you making some money in music as well as you got up into high school?
Yeah, I always worked outside of music. I wasn't ever getting paid really for
Hmm.
music. I was performing music mostly through school.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't think I'm trying to think like when did I get paid playing music? I was probably 19 and I got paid a bag of weed. I mean, I think that was probably the first time. But until then, it was like I worked in retail for outdoor sports because I'm an athlete and I'm an outdoor enthusiast like
Hmm.
yourself. So I worked at a store that sold that kind of gear, and then then I'd work the odd kitchen job at a restaurant where I could get hired. Just trying to make a buck, and I never connected that, you know, how to make money doing what I
Hmm.
love. That came along much later.
'Cause, yeah, I heard the story of it. It took you a while to get there into your 30s. But what were you thinking as high school was coming to an end about your future, about what you might do? And I didn't have any idea, but doing this podcast of Why We Work, many people do. And for you, you had it. I even spoke to someone yesterday, and just that sometimes with all the noise, we get confused with what the message is. But for
Yep.
you, there was a musical thread that went through it all, but
Yep.
uncertain to exactly what it looked like. So for you at high school and after, what were you thinking for a job and to sustain yourself?
That was a real struggle for me, Brian, because I knew two things about myself in high school that my parents didn't want to admit. And that was that I'm an athlete and I'm an artist.
What sport?
And
You mentioned athlete. What?
I grew up playing soccer and
Mhm,
rugby.
mhm.
And I ended up playing in college. I was played for an international team in the United States, went to Europe, played, got scouted
For soccer or
here
rugby?
for rugby. And
Man, rugby guys scare me.
they're insane. We are insane. Yes,
I
100%.
play university football, and some guys who did make the team went and played rugby. I'm
Yeah.
like, no, I'll keep my helmet, my shoulder pads. Man, it's because they're running at the same tilt, it may be
Oh,
even
yes.
faster, right?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
no, no, I
Yeah.
don't know if I ever picked up a rugby ball, whatever you call it.
You would have been like, somebody overinflated this football.
Yeah,
What is
yeah. Well,
this? What
I
are you
just
doing?
seen and but I'm like, no, it's all right. I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what's funny about rugby is it's a perfect marriage of football and soccer.
Mhm,
And having grown up playing a little bit of football, but a lot of soccer because my town was like a soccer town.
mhm,
Um, but I was insane enough to play football. Like I had no problem, no reservations playing
mhm,
football. It was just so I had all these mad soccer skills, but I got cut from my college team.
mhm,
And then I got recruited to play rugby because they were like, dude, you would be perfect in rugby with that foot from soccer. And
yeah.
so I immediately slipped right in. But here was the challenge. I grew up in Connecticut, went to a prep school, was kind of bred, not so much raised. So the joke is that I kind of came out as this artist and this athlete. And my parents didn't come from either background. And I
What
listened
have
a
we been
lot.
doing wrong here?
That is exactly what they said. That there was an intervention, Brian. No joke. My mom said, I would have rathered you were gay
Oh,
because
no.
then I would have known you had no say in the matter.
Mm,
It was rough. My parents really pushed really hard on me not to go in those directions. And I was like, I was in Who's Who in American music in 1989 as a junior in high school. And you think this is a hobby? Like it would, all the indicators were there that
mm,
how I excelled, where time disappeared, where I entered that ultra zone of focus, that flow state was either on stage or on the field. Those were the two areas. And then everything else in my life was a disaster, like just not interested, don't care, total apathy, but laser focus, creativity, work ethic in those two areas. But my family really was a very strong dissuader of going in either of those directions because it was like, in the United States, if you're going to go in professional sports or professional music, like those two industries, like I get it. As a parent, the 1% of the 1% make a
mhm,
lot and
mhm,
everybody else makes nothing.
mm.
And so my parents just didn't see a pathway of like long-term like financial success for me in either one. So they just kept pushing me to go into politics or economics or business. And so I would try. I'd be, okay. And I'd be okay in sales because I'm an extrovert, but I was miserable. And I remember having a nervous breakdown after getting a job. I rented a house in the suburbs. I drove a Chrysler New Yorker. I had golf clubs and a tennis racket in my trunk. No joke. This is all true story, which sounds really funny coming from this guy. Cause it's like, well, you did what? What are you in the witness relocation program? Like I was genuinely trying to be someone else for my parents and
send the picture to your mom. Is this all right?
Is this what you're looking for? Cause I'm miserable, but are you happy? And so it took a lot of courage for me and several extra years before I just finally said, you guys, listen, there is no other way that I can do this. And I had had a kind of like a career ending knee injury in the rugby world. So it was all music as far as I was concerned. And I finally made the decision, like I am going to make a career. I don't know what it looks like, but I'm going to make a career out of music. When I was 22, that was when I made that decision and informed everyone in my life. This is how it's going to go.
But knowing that you have a child, maybe you can speak about this because I'm in a group, a men's group when we meet, and we just started reading Parenting by Paul Tripp, and I think because we're only in the introduction, so the idea of parents' temptation to be owners of their kids rather than ambassadors, and the temptation to, whether we're talking about work or success or other areas of our children's lives. And I don't think it's even a knock on your parents who wanted the best for you with what they knew, right?
Yep,
with what
100%.
they knew and how they thought and what limited, really limited knowledge we all have about the future. But we think, okay, I think if he did this or she did this, then this is where they would go. We have no idea what tomorrow will bring. No. But that temptation, having a child yourself and mine as well, and for me as well, we want the best for our kids. And that temptation is like, okay, if you just listen to me, I know how your life is going to go. And, we can't even take control of our own lives, but we know it's going to be good for you. How do you think that, understanding having your own child as well, and that temptation to become the owner rather than just a representative trying to be a tool to help them in their life?
Oh, 100%. What a struggle. Absolutely. I know that my dad, for example, my dad grew up in the Depression. He was born in 28, and his dad died when he was 5. And his mom raised 3 kids as a single mom in the Depression. Now that background of context, like you don't follow your dreams. You don't get to follow your dreams.
What's your passion?
Right? You don't get a vote on your passion in that context. It's like, how do we eat today? How are we going to keep the lights on and the stove running? Like totally different, right? And when he was 17, he got drafted to play professional baseball, but he was a minor, and his mom was going to have to co-sign the contract, and she wouldn't because there was no money in baseball back then. He was 17 and 45, and there was absolutely no money in baseball. And having just scraped 3 kids through, and he was the youngest and he's now 17. She's like, and the last thing I'm doing is signing you to go play baseball. Are you kidding? Like, pennies, and so right. And I get the world that he came from and that his mom, and when I say I get the world, I actually don't. I don't even know what that must have been like. But trying to convey the context behind that, he's like, dude, I never had a bedroom. He goes, I lived on the couch in the living room till I left home. And I was like, what? That's so foreign to me, And so he's like, all I can tell you is that was my experience. My experience was like, you do what's right, not what's fun, or not, you don't get to follow your dreams. And my mom would tell me, she was like, yeah, he was basically told, don't follow your dreams. And So now as a parent myself, so I have a 14-year-old daughter, I have a 9-year-old son, and noticing the spirits within their body, who they are, and noticing who they are and who they're not,
Mm.
and what they're good at, what they're not good at, what they're interested in, what they're not interested in. Um, it's really interesting because like I have to just, I have to kind of turn off my opinion
Mm-hmm.
because it's not my, it's not my run. I'm on my run. They're on theirs.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a responsibility to them, right? To keep them safe. And developmentally, like they don't have a prefrontal cortex until they're like 18 to 24, right? So there's certain things where I have to be like, no, you can't do this and you have to do that, whether you like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
That's driving my adolescent crazy right now. She's like, you know, you're making decisions for me. I'm like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
that is my job. I said, but you're ultimately like, we're trying to curate a path,
Mm-hmm.
a safe path forward where you have as much opportunity as possible. And there's structure and stability as a foundation for you. And then you're going to get to a point where you get to jump off and fall, climb, crash, soar, and do whatever you want. But in the meantime, we have to kind of keep some boundaries, some structure, like a cement foundation. It's kind of boring,
Mm-hmm.
but we're going to try to inform you the best we can about this, you know, emerging world. But ultimately, you're going to know about the emerging world more than we are because you're right in it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's in Twitch, right? She's in TikTok.
Mm.
She understands. She's a digital native. You know what I mean? Digital is a second language for my wife and I. You know, we started out in the atoms economy. She started out in the bits economy.
Mm.
So it's a completely different world. And it's fascinating kind of like how much reins do you let out and how much reins do you hold in? And that dynamic tension in that process, I think that is the game of parenting.
Opposed to not having any reins at all.
Oh yeah.
Where
Yeah.
some are like, go ahead.
Yeah. Go
You
ahead.
know?
And good luck. I mean, developmentally, kids have to have structure.
Mm-hmm.
Developmentally, their brains need structure in order for them to feel safe and feel connected. And so when you apply structure, it's care for kids. If you don't supply structure, it's actually mentally detrimental, emotionally detrimental to them. So you don't have to be popular the whole time. That's not your job.
Mm-hmm.
Your job is to provide structure so they know where up is, they know where down is, it's reliable, it's predictable. And their job is to push right up against that wall, find that boundary and push against it. And the analogy I like to give people is imagine if someone puts you in a dark room and they turned out all the lights and it's pitch black and you're standing in the middle of the room. Your senses, you start to freak out because where's up, where's down. The moment you walk slowly and you find a wall, instinctively, you don't leave the wall.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You walk along the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Find your way using that boundary. And that's exactly developmentally and emotionally what kids need. They need walls that they can push up against and then walk along as they find their way to the door, 18, 21, whatever that door is. And then they can walk out on their own. But they need those walls to be able to push up against and know that there's something there that they can lean on and press against. It's reliable, it's steady, and they can lean on that. And that's really an important thing. I think that a lot of younger generation, their parents are afraid to impose on their kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard someone say it in reference to something else, but I like the word just grueling. I understand the son, daughter. This all seems grueling to you, but it will be good for you. And I think you and I, or at least we have some things I heard you say on other podcasts and read, is we've experienced some things that we're just hoping that our kids don't need to experience for them to figure, oh, maybe I shouldn't go down that path. That shouldn't be something at 70 I'm trying to cut. It might not be Coca-Cola. It might be something else. Right? We don't like, come on, please. This wall is a good
wall. If you could just take my word for it.
Yeah. I whisper that to my kids a lot.
There's this great story, and I won't tell the whole story, but the story talks about ways we learn. in life. And some of us, we learn through others, where we can listen and hear someone else's experience and learn from it and just go, glad you did it. I don't need to do that to know. And so the example might be with the stove. So the stove is hot. Kid, don't touch the stove. The stove is hot. One kid will go, thanks, I won't touch the stove. And they won't, because the way that they're wired, they have no problem relying upon the experience of others to kind of inform them and fast track their way as they navigate. And then you have my daughter, who's like,
You're not even using other kids. Then you have my daughter.
Right. How hot?
My daughter,
how hot is
well,
it?
I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And so she's got a personality where she's like, I know you told me the stove is hot, and I will touch it just because you told me not to. And I'm like, cool. You're someone who has to touch the stove yourself. Mm-hmm. You have to have that personal experiential knowledge. You need to do it yourself to understand it in your bones. And I could tell it to you 7 times and you're going to just go, thanks for sharing, but I need to find out for myself. And I'm okay. All right. Well, if that is the way you're wired and that's how you want to experience this lap in this physical body, so be it. I'll be here along the way to bandage up your finger when you burn it. And I'm not going to make you wrong for touching the stove. I'm going to encourage you not to. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, she recognizes this in herself. I recognize this in her. And we have a pretty good partnership where I tell her, I'm still going to tell you it's hot. Mm-hmm. That's my job. Your job is to decide whether to listen or experience it for yourself. I can't tell you what to do in that case. I can just make a recommendation. And there will be consequences. You're going to learn, right? For yourself. And my son's great. He'll just take my word for it. I'm so grateful that they're both not burn their hand themselves.
They'll be holding hands going together. Hey, let's do this.
See you, Dad. Get the bandages ready. Whee!
Well, that's my daughter's 11. My son is 7. And I see that with my daughter. And I'm glad we're having this conversation because it allows me to think a little bit more clearly than what I've normally been thinking about being a parent. And that's why I like this little group that I'm in too.
Nice.
But my son, like 7, is asking so many questions and repeating the things that I've said weeks later. Like, Papa, I shouldn't do this because you did that, right? I'm like, that's right. Right. And great? It just, those are great moments. And then my daughter, moments. Like, go ahead. You want to touch the stove? It's there. But I did tell you, you want to go out there with your friend and someone with a phone and go and playing and not actually playing, this is what's going to happen. This is going to be a habit. And I can see her kind of sneaking away and not really listening. And it's a great conversation.
They're amazing. And I'll tell you the one we had, maybe it was last night even. I don't know how it came up, but I said, it was my wife and my 2 kids, and we're all watching WandaVision right now. We're enjoying it.
What is that? What is that?
It's the series from the Marvel Avengers.
Yes.
They're doing a series. It's on Disney Plus, and it's Wanda and Vision from the Avengers, and it's this the ongoing storyline from the Marvel comic universe after the last Avengers movie.
Are you a Netflix family as well, or just?
Yeah. We love it. So what we try to do is we try to find a show together that we all will enjoy, and it gives us something to chew on, from an entertainment and just dialogue. But somehow, I don't know how it came up, but drugs came up last night. Mm-hmm. And I just said in the most honest tone of voice, I said, you guys, please, just whatever you do, just come to me before you go do any drugs. Mm-hmm. Just come to me and do them with me first. And my wife was like, yes, listen to your dad. And it was the funniest thing because it was like, I think I just said that. And, right? Like, me. As opposed to the, like, don't do drugs, don't ever do drugs. Like, as if, right? That's good luck. Yeah. It's like, just say no, good luck, Mm-hmm. And I was just honest. I was like, listen, just come to me. Every question you have, bring it to me. Don't ask your friends. Mm-hmm. I will give you all the honest answers. I will have all the honest conversations with you with no judgment about any of it. Just come to me. And they were like, you could see them like, this is awesome. Thank you. I was like, you're welcome. Listen, you're little spirits in a body. You're trying to figure this stuff out, I'm not going to be the one that you need to fear coming to, because you're going to get scolded, because you're going to think every dark thought under the sun because you're a human being. You're going to try dumb things because you're a human being. I know this because I did it all. I did it all. So I'm not going to come here and pretend like I'm better than you and I've never done anything and I've never thought anything or felt anything. So like anything you want to bring to me, you're safe coming to me with it. You're never going to get in trouble. You're never going to get scolded. And giving them that psychological safety feels weird because it's totally the opposite of my upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
But in my upbringing, I also went off the deep end of exploration and like taboo and overdoing stuff. And I did all, I mean, here by the grace of God am I. I did so many risky things. And I'm lucky to be alive. I'm just lucky to be alive, because any number of things that I did along the way could have killed me or landed me in jail. So I just want them to have like kind of like a consigliere, like a wise old elder that they can come to and crash any idea against and not get in trouble for it.
That's right. Like, and that it goes back to the ownership. If we're trying to own our kids and think that we can control every moment and thought in there, like we're just squeezing them like putty or whatever, and they're just gonna pop out of there and be gone. Right? And doing all those things, and you might see them physically, but you've lost them.
Checked out.
And that's unfortunate. I think I had a upbringing where I was able to do whatever I wanted, and I rebelled. So I don't know what the point was, but I went and I don't want that for my kids. I want to show them a loving family at home and that we are here and to support them. And I was actually thinking, I haven't said it to them yet, but I was thinking just the other day, I'm like, if my kids want to do drugs or, whatever it is, I think I would want to be there for them. Right. And I don't know if I thought I'm going to do it with them. Maybe I did. I was like, whatever, a little bit more minor. Like, I'm not going to do some heroin with them or anything like that.
Right.
But I'm going to be there and support them. And I've talked about drugs with my kids, even though they're young. And I live in this culture in Korea where drugs are bad. Right.
Don't do drugs, okay?
Right. And I think people have a fear. And well, what it was, and reminding when you were talking about your dad, is Korea, the war that they had in the 40s. There's still people alive that remember that. And so they have this hardworking mentality, but the kids don't have that, because just like your kids or my kids, they've grown up in this digital age, and, Korea is doing very well and they don't know it, but the parents are so worried of, what their parents went through the war. So they're holding on to this. And no matter how it's looked upon, like Koreans who think about going to Canada or going to the United States, it's like, oh, there's so many drugs, so many bad people over there. How are we going to ever do this? And then so they control them even more. And then you just, they're just springing off into all these different directions. Yeah. And I think, being that soundboard, being there for your kids and being honest that, you're going to have these temptations. I can't keep you in my home forever.
No.
But I do want to have an open door that you're always welcome to. You're all like, I understand. And if I don't understand, let's have a conversation and help me understand a little bit better what you're going through.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great journey. I mean, it's a fascinating, and I remember when my wife was pregnant with our first, one of our friends, he said to me, Tim, you've done a lot of things in your life. He goes, but you are going to love being a parent. He goes, it is just the most fascinating journey. And one of the things I learned early on, and it hasn't changed, is that almost every day, like, and this was more prevalent when they were like toddlers, but it's still, I'm seeing this happen pretty regularly now, even with them at 9 and 14, is like you wake up and they say or do something that they didn't say or do yesterday. And they didn't know they were going to say or do it today. And you didn't either. And so you're all in this like exploratory sandbox together, witnessing this emergence, which for me, so just to kind of back up and drop the spiritual like nuke. So for me, my belief system, my framework that this whole thing is informed by, is that we are tiny individuations of this non-physical energy that came into form to experience itself for no reason other than experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so that takes morality and it goes away. We invent ideas around agreement as social beings so that we don't blow this thing up really quickly. So we're in this kind of communal expression experiment as humans, and we're all parts of the same whole, having individual experiences within it, but it's a collective experience, which means that what I do impacts you in some way, what you do impacts me in some way. It's a collective yet individual experience. But the point is to express myself how I want to and experience expression and learn along the way what I like, what I don't like, what helps others, what doesn't help others, what might hinder others. And like, who am I to direct or control the experience of Allie and Julian, whatever their actual spiritual name might be? Because in form right now, they're playing the role of a girl and a boy, but who knows how many times they've incarnated as a human? I don't know. I don't know how many times I've incarnated. We waved the magic Men in Black memory pen, so we forgot it all, so it would seem really real. And this idea, this backdrop, creates a fascinating opportunity for discussion around the dinner table. Because what I'm witnessing in front of me are these emerging spirits in body. And developmentally, they're having to navigate how to control the machine, the developing machine that they're inhabiting, which is this meat suit, which has boundaries. And so it has hormones, it has a developing brain, and they're having to navigate. This little spirit inside this body is having to navigate how to use the machinery. And sometimes it's clunky and sometimes it works well. And I'm watching it take place. But meanwhile, I'm having the same experience. Yeah. So we're kind of having a communal experience of this like journey of exploration, but we're having it together. So to me, it's fascinating. It's just fascinating. And so our dinner conversations are really deep at our dinner table. They're really fun. They're often quite existential, quite philosophical, quite spiritual, because they've kind of been coming up inside of this framework. And it's pretty cool. Like, my daughter right now is super into paganism and Wicca. She's kind of leaning into like this emerging sense of herself in connection with nature, deities, spirit. And we pay her to read nonfiction books that are personal growth, spiritual growth books. We pay her $20 a book. Same with our son. This is our way of incentivizing them to like read developmentally high nutrient material. So right now, and then she has to write like a 3-paragraph summary and present it and email it to mommy and dad. She gets a 20. So the last 2 books she just read were on witchcraft, and she is meditating on her own. She's performing rituals on her own. She is having all kinds of spiritual experiences right now on her own. She's 14 and she's guiding her own spiritual journey. I'm not getting in the way of that. Are you kidding me? Go for that. Like, she is dialed in, and who am I to say, no, you go do that? Even though people have been celebrating spirituality that way for tens of thousands of years, you shan't. That's not for me to say. So it's been really just a joyful journey.
Sometimes I just look at my son and daughter and like, you used to fit on my chest. From
Remember that?
here to here. Now look at you. You're sometimes talking back too. I wish I had you as a parent growing up. Do you know how many bags I could have bought for, and I would have read too. Man,
dude,
20, Dad.
We would do. Oh, are you kidding? We would have had you as an entrepreneur. Like, I'm utterly unemployable. Like, I know this about myself, and my daughter's definitely also. And we're trying to explain this to her. It's pretty clear. Like, we're like, look, you're going to teach you, like, how to like make money to do what you want in the world. Like, we're going to put 2 and 2 together for you. And she doesn't want to. She said, I'm not ready to get a job. Well, I didn't say get a job. You're going to have to make money in this world in order to do what you want to
Mhm.
do. And we're going to show you creative ways to do that that are outside of the 9 to 5. And neither my wife nor I, our parents weren't entrepreneurs. We didn't have any mentors,
Mhm.
models for
Mhm.
that. And so, me being an entrepreneur, my wife left the corporate world to become my business partner. So now we're entrepreneurs together. We work from home. Our kids are, growing up in this environment, and it's like, we're going to show you the way, and you can take it or leave it. But we're gonna show you the way, and
That's what my
see what
daughter
happens.
said. Was it yesterday, the day before? She said, "Papa, I want to start a lemonade stand." I,
Sweet.
do it. She says, "Where?" Well, she wanted to do it in another place that we're thinking about being at one point. No, do it now. We live, it's, yesterday, I think it was 25, 26 degrees or whatever, you're 70 something. And
Right.
that's pretty good, right?
That's
And
pretty
in the
nice.
summertime, it's going to be 40 something or you're 100 and something, right?
That's
It's
hot.
pretty high. I
Yeah.
mean, you can sell some lemonade here. Go do it. Like she's 11.
Totally. Figure that one out.
So not everyone has children like ours, or we will struggle and our kids will grow up and have their own problems as well. So
Yep.
when you come across people for your profession, what is the process that you go through with helping people with anxiety or depression or addictions? What does that look like generally for you?
Yeah. So historically, my company works with like a nationwide treatment center for adolescents that are struggling. And what my company does is we're part of an interdisciplinary team, and we provide music therapy groups every week for the kids who are at that treatment program. And the kids are usually 13 to 17. And they're struggling with anything from anxiety to depression, self-harm, disordered eating, suicidality, substance use disorder. And the substance use disorder is usually an attempt to try to regulate the other mental health issues. And so one of the big mistakes that most people make is they think that drug use is a problem. Drug use is not a problem. Drug use is a solution.
Mm,
Addiction is a solution to a problem. It's just a crummy solution. It's a solution that causes more problems than it solves. But people who don't have trauma and don't have mental health issues don't get addicted.
mhm,
The overwhelming majority of humans on the planet use mind altering substances on a daily basis without any problem. A small percentage of them have problems with it, but it's not because of the drugs. Because if it was, everybody who used them would be addicted.
like a
So what
phone, for instance.
like a phone. Oh, absolutely. Screen addiction, 100%. Right. But the overwhelming majority of adults and teens use, experiment, and have throughout human history. Primates even use mind altering substances. So it's not the substances. So we all want to just take that out of the picture.
Mhm.
What they're struggling with is some sort of physical, emotional, social, or spiritual pain.
Mm.
They've got pain in their self. And that self is a physical self, an emotional self, a social self, and a spiritual self. And they don't know how to process that pain. And so they reach for something else in order to self soothe, because that's what the nervous system does.
Doesn't this go completely, and I've thought this before, but against the criminalization of people with, narcotics of some
Oh, yeah,
sort, or the
of
use
course.
of, or even to some degree, even the selling of, right?
Oh, all of the above. Yes.
Right. And how
Nailed it.
horrible it is that people are spending many years in prison for having a substance,
Yeah.
when the reality is they should be in some sort of clinic
They should be getting treated
for,
for their
for their
pain.
pain.
Yes, absolutely. You can't punish the pain out of people, is a quote from a friend of mine named,
Give
right?
them
And
more pain. Like, rather
it just
than,
gives them more pain. You're just re-traumatizing them. And across most developed countries, they have it just a completely upside down. Really, there's a great book, and that way I won't go too far down the rabbit hole, but I just finished reading this book called Drug Use for Grownups by Dr. Carl Hart. Dr. Carl Hart is a world-renowned substance use researcher, neuroscientist, and well known across the world for his research. And the point he makes in the book is that we criminalize people, particularly people of color around the world, but we criminalize them for altering their consciousness. And your consciousness is sovereign, it's yours. And if you really want to say that you're free, then you're free to do with what you want with your consciousness, so long as it doesn't impact anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
But you're very much not free to do that. And what happens is you have people who are in pain who are trying to alter the pain. So they're altering their consciousness to address the pain, and we criminalize them and we punish them for that. So in treatment, what we're trying to do is we're trying to show them basically, A, heal the pain, whatever it was, find the source of it and treat it. B, teach them better tools for regulating their nervous system. So when they are stressed, how do they regulate? When they are down, how do they regulate back up? When they're up, how do they regulate down? How do they regulate their nervous system in a healthy way? Because they've probably been taught poor tools. And so music is one of those tools that helps a body regulate in a healthy way. So we show them through active music making, through music listening, through songwriting, through relaxation, through creative arts. We show them how to reach for music in order to help them stay present, help them to open up and process things without having to talk about it, how to really use creativity as a coping skill, because creativity is the muscle we use to solve problems in life,
Mm-hmm.
how to escape stress without medicating, and then how to reconnect with something outside of ourself. Because as the 4-part, physical, mental, social, spiritual beings, we are wired to connect. That's what mammals do. We live in relationship from cradle to grave. And so we're not meant to do this on our own. And so when we physically disconnect and mentally disconnect and socially disconnect and spiritually disconnect, it creates discomfort, dis-ease in the mind body, and then it triggers cravings to self-soothe. So we want to show them how to reconnect with something outside of themselves that's safe. And why music's so powerful is that the beat, right? Just the
Mm-hmm.
beat. The beat is safe. The beat, it has no opinion of you. It has no judgment of you. It doesn't tell you to do anything. It doesn't influence you in any way other than it influences your heart rate and your blood pressure up or down. So you can connect with the beat, and now you're connected to something outside of yourself that's safe. And that, for a lot of people who have trauma and trust issues, initiating some sort of safety, some sort of safe connection to something outside of themselves is the first step in their healing.
My mom was in excuse me, in palliative care last year, and there was the music lady would come by, and at first I was like, I think I was defensive of anyone coming in to see my mom. Like, what's
Yep.
your angle? What's going on? This lady
Yep.
had a cart. I think she had a computer or a tablet or something where she can get sheets of music.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, go ahead. And then my mom was happy. And then she was playing all kinds of songs. And then my aunts were in there and they were singing. And then I'm like, this lady's pretty good. It's very, very helpful in
Yeah.
in palliative care of all
Yeah.
places. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
it's really good for these people to be getting together and singing and kind of getting away from, or there is some soothing and some healing that's going on as well.
Yeah.
But I realized
100%.
that then.
Yeah. Yeah. My TED talk is based on the work I did on a palliative care team,
Mm,
because oftentimes it's the anxiety, that existential anxiety that people are having in tough times. Am I going to make it? What's going to happen if I don't? Really deep questions are going on in the back that might crash up against dogma or theology or culture or family.
mhm,
And being able to softly, very comfortably address or escape that space through something that they've trusted their whole life, which is music. It's like bringing an old friend in, a
mm,
trusted advisor. And it like the in the TED talk, the line was, when the meds fail, the docs prescribe music, because we trust music.
mhm,
We let music into very sacred, very personal places for each one of us. And there are things that we've thought, or when we've heard songs that told our story or told what we were thinking or feeling, that we never told anybody else. But that artist in that song shared the exact emotion or the exact feeling or the exact thought. And in that moment, we knew we weren't alone. And that's really, really powerful. And at a very deep level, the human being really appreciates that.
she won me over when she started taking requests. So I was to start listing off songs, which I just thought, these would be in particular good healing songs for my mom.
Yep.
And I was like, how about a Martin Luther? There's a song that he sings and or sang and wrote, "Mighty Fortress is Our God,"
Mm-hmm.
and she had no idea. She went, and a couple of days later, she came back. I got it. I learned it. I'm ready, and she sang it, and I was like, wonderful. That
That's our job.
she really won me over, and it wasn't. I think she came from a different viewpoint, but she didn't care. She
Yes.
just, I'm just gonna do this for you.
Yep.
What about in your position? I know you only have a little bit of time,
Yep.
and you might even be at the near the end of your time, actually. So just if you could, a tip for people getting into maybe your line of work or in work in general.
Mm-hmm.
And also, what is some adversity that you have faced, thinking of other people and the adversity they face in their work, and what suggestions would you or encouragement would you give to those people?
Yeah, I have a funny litmus test for whether or not a line of work might be right for you. And I call it the Starbucks factor. And the Starbucks factor is if you consider going to work and then you think, well, I better stop at Starbucks first, it might not be the right place. Because what I found in my career is I don't need Starbucks
Mhm,
before I go to work because I am so fired up
mhm,
about the idea of healing people with music. But there was a time early on in my profession when I was working with a particular population, and I took the work because I was new, and I was taking all the work when I was new for the experience. But there are some clinical populations that music therapists resonate with, and some we don't. And I noticed there were some groups where I needed a cup of coffee before I went to see that group. And I realized, I was like, I don't think I'm meant to work with this group because there are other groups I can't wait to get there. And there are some groups where I can't wait to get to Starbucks first. So the Starbucks factor is a good thing to think about when you're considering the work you're going to do. Are you like, well, I better caffeine up? If you
five
better
dollars
caffeine
and
up,
60 cents I paid the other day for a coffee. What am I doing?
yeah, yeah. And you might go broke, at the same time. So chances are there's someone else who will do it better and will experience more joy. And so get out of the way and let that person express themselves in that vein and keep looking for what the right slipstream is for you. Because my experience is when you're working in a field that is right, is like a right fit for you, time will become your enemy because you won't have enough of it
Mhm.
because it'll go too fast. And that's what anytime I am on the court or on the field or I am in the studio or on the stage, time goes by too fast. And that's when I know I'm exactly where I want to be.
I don't. You're pressed.
That's okay.
Encouragement.
We can go like 5 more. It's cool.
Okay. Encouragement for people who are facing, and I mean, you deal with this on a regular basis. It's part of your
Mm-hmm.
profession, of people who are discouraged but still work
Yep.
and wonder how they can put their feet on the ground and face this day. One is the Starbucks test, right? Like maybe they shouldn't be doing this, but also encouragement for people who maybe this is for them, but they're still discouraged. Maybe they have pain in their past. How do
Yeah.
you deal with that yourself, and how do you encourage others?
You know, couple thoughts come to mind. The first one is this. You, me, we are far more resilient and strong than we realize. And the only way we find our own strength is in the presence of resistance. So adversity is something to lean into
Mhm.
because that's where you discover your strength. All people who are strong as a result of resistance training.
Mm.
So your muscles they grow in the presence of resistance, not in the presence of like ease. They atrophy. And
Mhm.
so I think about that mentally and spiritually as well, that when you find yourself in the face of adversity, lean in because this is the moment where you'll discover more about yourself than during the easy times. May not feel good, but I don't believe that I'm here to feel good all the
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
I don't think that's the point. I think the point is the degree to which I go through adversity is the degree to which I can appreciate when things are
Yeah.
good.
Yep.
So I think that's an important thing, is lean in. We live in a convenience culture
Mhm.
and a comfort culture. And I think that kind of robs people of the real joy, like the real highs in life are only experienced in so far as they're relative and counterbalanced by the struggles. And so lean in, don't resist, and discover something about yourself. You're going to find something on the other side. And one of my friends, he says, everything you want in life is on the other side of your comfort zone.
Mm.
So don't just quit the bitching and lean into it, and see what you can discover. And what you might discover, well, you don't know. And working in recovery, I meet people at their lowest point. I see people broken, broken, and a shell of where they were at one point in their life. And then I see them rise like a phoenix and live life 2.0 and go on and do amazing things that looked impossible at the time that I met them. For both them and me, I'd be like, I don't see anything good happening here. But that's possible. And I also see people not make it. Right. And so every day that I'm still breathing, I've got a shot. I've got a shot at something. And I don't know what it is exactly. And that's what makes the game worth playing.
Mm.
Because while there is some predictability in adulthood, there is also possibility. And I have a podcast in 2021, and I have my own summit platform where I've done 2 summits now on stress. In 2020, I did not have a podcast. I mean, in January 2020,
Mhm.
it wasn't even a possibility. It wasn't even on my radar. And then this giant juggernaut called COVID-19 drops, and my speaking career goes away as I know it. And I'm now home in front of a screen 24/7. And the first thing I do is I did 40 Facebook Lives in 40 days, just playing acoustic music to comfort people.
Mm.
And then I realized I really liked some of that material. How am I going to get that out to healthcare workers who are struggling fast? I could invent a podcast and I could release a song a week. Suddenly, I'm back recording. I think I've recorded 22 new tracks since May of 2020, none of which existed before lockdown. That is fascinating to me,
Mhm.
because in the midst of all that chaos, there was a complete opportunity that I saw, and just, well, okay, let's go for it. So, if you're still breathing, you got a shot. And so
There's
take it.
my I don't know if it's because we watched I liked Annie growing up because I felt I had a little hard knock life, and I heard my son sing the other day, "Eh, it's a hard knock life," and I'm like, I don't know," but the point is these when in reality, this adversity that we face is good for us, as you talked about the walls that we
100%.
need to atrophy and the resistance that's necessary to allow us to appreciate and be grateful for things. And I hope that with our children and your children as well. How can people reach you? Tim finds her.
Yeah. Find me online. Instagram is at Tim Ringgold, Facebook, Tim Ringgold, my website, timringgold.com with 2 G's. And if you go to my website, you can take a relaxation vacation for free. You can download a 15-minute guided tour through one of your best memories. I'll walk you out of the stress of the present, get you back in touch with one of your best moments of your life. And so you can bring that experience back to the stress of the present, so you can be at your best whenever you need it. And that's my free gift to anybody who takes the time to come find me online.
Tim, one final question. Why do you work?
Um, I work. Wow, that's a good question. Why do I work? You can edit all the silence as I think of the layers, because
Mhm.
there's multiple reasons why I work. Um, I work because one of the reasons that I'm inspired to work is this. I work because I want my kids to experience the planet with their 5 senses. What I mean by that is, as I grow my business, I have the ability to take my kids out of the little bubble that they live in Southern California and go places and experience other places with their own hands, not on a screen. And for me, the ability to provide that opportunity for them. I know as I grew up, anytime I left the United States, like the little blinders in my head,
Mm.
I grew up in Connecticut, and anytime I left New England, it was like I saw a wider view of the world. And then I got the opportunity in high school to go to Europe several times, and my view of the world and of the United States and what I had and changed drastically. And so one of the reasons I work is to provide my kids with that ability to take the blinders off and see the world with, wide open eyes.
And we hope we can have them appreciate what you're doing and your sacrifice for your work as well and for your family. Tim Ringgold, business owner, TEDx speaker, author, and certified music therapist. I appreciate your time and I appreciate
This
the work that you do.
this has been great. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you to Tim Ringgold. Find him on the internet and listen to some of his music and ingest what he is doing to help people in their struggles. As for me, find me on any podcast host, Apple, Stitcher, whatever, Google, any of them. I'm on there. And if you would like to be interviewed or you know someone that would be a good guest, you can email me at WhyWeWork, BrianVee@gmail.com. WhyWeWork, BrianVee@gmail.com. Please like and share and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That is helpful. That is encouraging. Comment and all of that. I'm Brian V, and this is Why We Work.